3 things that you need to know about how to apply boundaries into your life that will be an absolute game changer for your confidence. So why do we even need boundaries in our life? Well, let me just name a basic few. It's great for your mental health and does wonders for your confidence. It avoids burnout. It will help identify your identity and how you identify with yourself. It obviously supports a healthy work-life balance. And best of all, it stops people from taking the piss out of you. So what's the problem with not having boundaries? Well, just to name a few, you're more likely to be stressed. You're more likely to have anxiety. You're more likely to burn out. You're more likely to have relationship issues, financial issues, and lower confidence. In a nutshell, it's going to impact on pretty much every single aspect of your life. And before I share these 3 critical things around boundaries, make sure you stay to the end, because on this one, I'm going to share some massive misconceptions that are an absolute game changers to how you will understand the concept of what boundaries really are. Number 1, first of all, make sure you even have boundaries to begin with. Many people don't even have them, and they spend their entire lives trying to run around pleasing other people, compromising on themselves in the process, all to gain validation from other people, to be liked more, to be seen in a different way by other people. By doing this to yourself, you're basically treating yourself as second class. You're actively saying other people are more important than me. Other people's needs, desires, and wants and dreams are more important than my needs, desires, wants, and dreams. When you become so focused on what everybody else wants and lose sight of what it is that you want, you basically lose yourself. You stop being able to connect with what it is that actually pleases you anymore, because all your energy and focus is what other people want from you. Don't forget, every time you do this and it's on repeat, basically what you're telling yourself is, what I want doesn't matter. And every time you continually do it afterwards, you're basically reinforcing that belief. You're basically behaviorally telling yourself, what I want is less important than what everybody else wants. Therefore, I must put other people's needs before my own. So first and foremost, you must understand what boundaries are and understand that you need them. If you don't have boundaries, it's a guaranteed ingredient to feel really bad about yourself. Number 2, once you've actually understood what your boundaries are, you then have to be able to express them and voice them to other people. Lots of people actually have boundaries, but they don't actually communicate that with other people around them, and then often get wound up and frustrated when other people seemingly cross them. I see this most commonly with close relationships, whether that's a romantic relationship with your family or whether it's with a best friend. Maybe you've said it yourself, or maybe you've heard other people say it, but you've probably heard people say something along the lines of, he should know that I don't like this, or she should know by now that I don't like that type of thing. Newsflash, people are not psychic. It's fair to say some people know you better than other people. To assume just because somebody knows you pretty well that you don't need to express what you like and what you don't like and what you want and what you don't want is basically pretty much a guaranteed recipe for something to go wrong. Let me tell you something that's going to sting a little bit. If you get annoyed with somebody because they've done something on the basis of an assumption that they should know that thing about you, but actually you've never really told them, then I hate to say it, that is a form of manipulation, and it's actually a game. Now, this game doesn't necessarily mean that it's conscious. It doesn't mean you're walking around going, I'm going to play a game with you. But if you're getting annoyed at people on something that you haven't told them that thing would annoy you, then that is basically setting somebody up for a fall. Now, it's fair to say there's some fairly universal things around that people aren't going to appreciate happening to them. Some of them are just basic respect, and some of them are just basic humanity. For example, nobody likes to be slapped in the face or stabbed in the eye or cheated on or lied to. I mean, who walks around saying, excuse me, sir, I'd like to let you know that it's crossing my boundary if you actually stabbed me today. Nobody says that. However, when it comes to day-to-day incidental things, but how we see something, how we view it, how we judge a situation, how we interpret it, we're more than often very different. And very few of us are exactly like for like. What's obvious to you isn't necessarily obvious to other people. And sometimes we react like this other person is being vindictive towards us, when actually maybe they're just being clumsy or potentially thoughtless. However, that other person doesn't stand a chance. If you get upset at somebody else on the basis that they should know that that thing would upset you, even though you haven't told them that it would upset you. Third important point, once you've learned what your boundaries are and once you've learned to express your boundaries, then you have to be willing to have consequences if people aren't then listening to them or are continuing to cross them. The amount of times I hear people say something along the lines of, I'm so wound up, he knows I don't like that, I've told him before. And I might simply ask them, so what did you do when he did it? And they'll say, nothing. Why would anybody take you seriously if you express a boundary and then nothing happens when they continue to cross it? The expression of your boundaries just become empty words. Nobody's going to take you seriously if there's no consequences, if people continue to cross the boundaries that you've then expressed. It goes without saying that some boundaries will be more important to you than others. I don't think it's fair to think that we're going to have a one-stop shop for a consequence for every single boundary. If somebody snaps at you one day because they have a really bad day at work, but then they apologize immediately after, that's very different from somebody cheating on you. So obviously the consequence has to be proportional to whatever the boundary is, and that will be proportional to how strongly you feel about it. What's also very important, not only is there consequences, that you communicate those consequences and follow through with them. There's no point in voicing a consequence if you're not going to do anything about it. For example, every relationship I've ever had, I've made it quite clear in a very kind way that anything like lying or cheating, then that to me is a deal breaker. And with zero tolerance, I will be out of that relationship faster than they can say sorry. And I have been cheated on and I did leave forever. Another example I can share is that one of my friends, every time we used to go out drinking, would always get in an absolute diabolical drunken state. And before long, we were getting kicked out of bars. They were falling off the seat. They were causing arguments. It was just an absolute nightmare. I had a lot of love and time for this person. So rather than completely cutting this person out of my life, because obviously this isn't as bad as being cheated on, I just chose that every time this person was going to be in this social gathering and they were going to be drinking, I would either choose to not drink. So if anything kicked off, I could just drive home, or I just wouldn't be there at all. But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't spend time with them when we weren't out on the town. Maybe a smaller example that I hear a lot of people talking about is maybe when you're talking to your partner and they pick up the phone and start scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or any form of social media. This seems to really vex people, and a lot of people get very reactive at this, but very few people actually say it in a very boundary-based way. They just tend to attack their partner. Now, this might not necessarily be a deal breaker for a relationship, but it could be something that maybe you choose to just not carry on speaking when that person is on the phone whilst you're telling them something. Now, they're just examples off the top of my head. Now, I'm not saying that they're right or wrong, and there is no real right or wrong. It really comes down to what's important to you. But what's really important is that if you do follow through with your consequences, or fundamentally, if that person is so inclined, they're just going to absolutely carry on doing it because they can. Now, let's get to those misconceptions that I mentioned earlier. Too many people seem to think that by expressing a boundary, it's controlling the other person. Many people seem to think it's threatening or a form of blackmail. Expressing a boundary is not telling somebody else what they can and cannot do. It's expressing what you are willing or not willing to accept. I think I should rewind that and play it again because I can't stress this point enough. Expressing a boundary is not telling somebody else what they can and cannot do. It's expressing what you are willing or not willing to accept. Another very regular misconception is that because boundaries are good for us, people seem to think they're going to be very easy to apply. Hate to break it to you, but that's absolutely not the case. If you're used to not holding boundaries in your life or not holding boundaries in a particular area of your life, when you start doing it, it's going to feel bloody uncomfortable. You might even get a sense that you're being selfish because it's going to feel foreign and it's going to feel very different for you to do something that is valuing yourself rather than positioning other people as more valuable than you. So no matter where you are on your journey when it comes to boundaries and what type of things you're applying boundaries to, if you get this sense of, oh my God, are they going to like me anymore? Oh my God, are they going to be angry at me? If you feel selfish and it feels awkward, they're good signs that you're actually on the right track. But let me give you some reassurance. If you're just starting to apply boundaries in your life, in all of it, or maybe some particular areas, let me just assure you that it doesn't stay uncomfortable. And if you're doing it from a place of self-respect, your confidence will gain wonders from it. And as a final thought, whether you're trying to now implement boundaries in all of your life or some parts of your life, it still insinuates that you haven't had clarity where those boundaries actually are, which therefore would suggest there's a possibility it's not only are people crossing your boundaries, but unbeknown to you, you might have been crossing other people's boundaries too. So it's also very important to respect other people's boundaries as much as you respecting your own. As long as when you're respecting other people's boundaries, you're not doing it at the compromise of something that's very important to you. So if you've enjoyed this video on boundaries, check out my video with Adam Brookes, where we put the world to rights and a huge deep dive on boundaries in that particular interview. Just remember, respect is a two-way street. And when you hit that sweet spot where you're asking for respect of other people by applying your boundaries and expressing them and offering consequences when people don't adhere to them, and you're doing the same to other people, you're much more likely to have a happy, fulfilled, and confident life. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell just to make sure you get all future content. And other than that, have a great day. Cheers.